Afternoon adventurers, it's me, it's Half Sanity, back with another Divine Soul video, going over 7th level Cleric spells and how they interact with the Sorcerer's meta magic. And this time, we're in single digits. There are only 9 spells at this level for Clerics, which is pretty exciting. This video is probably not going to be any shorter, because I like to ramble. We'll see what happens. I'll try and keep it brief. So let's get started right away with number 1 in our alphabetical list, Conjur Celestial. Not to be confused with the 5th level Summon Celestial from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. That's a completely different spell. Conjur Celestial, or as some people have taken to calling it, Conjur Coatl, is a 7th level spell that allows you to summon a CR 4 or lower celestial creature. Now, CR 4 and lower doesn't sound like a lot for a 7th level spell, and mostly isn't. In fact, there are only 2 choices for Celestials of that challenge rating in the monster manual. Those are the Pegasus at CR 2, not worth the 7th level spell slot, and the Coatl, which is actually quite good. It has a bite attack that can poison and put to sleep an enemy that fails its con saving throw, which is only DC 13, but if it lands, great. It can also constrict a target and restrain it, which is great for your party members to have advantage on their attacks. And it has 14 spells in its innate spellcasting feature that it can cast either once or 3 times per day, making it well worth a 7th level spell slot to add another caster to your party. Now it's worth mentioning that Conjur Celestial can be cast as a 9th level spell to conjure up a Celestial of CR 5 or lower, which includes the Unicorn, which is interesting because unicorns have legendary actions, and to my knowledge, off the top of my head at least, they're the only creatures that you can summon that do with any of these sort of spells. Now, its legendary actions aren't game-changing. They're pretty nice. It can attack, it can spend 2 legendary actions to basically give someone a short duration Shield of Faith, which is real nice, or spend all 3 to heal itself a bit. Also means between fights it's capable of fully healing itself, no problem, which is nice. But if you're going to cast it as a 9th level spell, I would ask your DM if they'll allow the Hollyphant from Descent into Avernus, the hardcover adventure. In addition to its interesting trumpet attacks and Globe of Invulnerability like feature, it can also cast some spells of its own, including, but not limited to, Shape Change, changing itself into a mammoth with feathered wings and a flight speed of 120 feet, which is awesome, just off the bat. Also pretty powerful, considering that while shape changed, it keeps its spellcasting and other features. But I'm not here to extol the virtues of the Hollyphant. I'm here to talk about meta-magic. And Conjur Celestial doesn't really interact with most meta-magics, except for that extended spell, making it last 2 hours instead of 1. You know I love my extended spell on my hour-long spells. So with that, let's move on to Divine Word. Now, Divine Word is a mechanically interesting spell because while it is centered on you, it doesn't have a range of self. It has a range of 30 feet. So with the distant spell meta magic, we can double that to 60 and instantly banish certain creature types and potentially horribly debuff others. Now, Divine Word is a bit limited in its usage by that HP gate at 50, 40, 30, and 20, especially when you consider that at level 13, 20 health isn't very much. A fireball typically does, almost always, does more than 20 damage. So, a creature that fails its saving throw against your fireball, unless it's immune to fire, is probably going to die anyway, if it has less than 20 HP. But hey, if it has less than 40 HP, it's blinded, that's enough. And with a 60-foot radius around you, that is an absolutely monstrous area. Well worth the sorcery point. Again, it doesn't really benefit from any other meta magics, because it doesn't deal damage, and it's already a bonus action, which is super cool, but doesn't interact with Meta-Magic. So let's move on again to Etherealness. Now, Etherealness is also on the Sorcerer spell list, but I'm going to mention it anyway. I've been doing that for all the spell levels before this, why would I stop now? Etherealness lasts for 8 hours, doesn't even require concentration, so the extended spell Meta-Magic will go a long way in doubling that to 16 hours. Plenty to pop to the ethereal plane, do many things, and then return. On the other hand, that's about the only Meta-Magic that applies to it. Starting to sense a theme for this spell level, as Etherealness kinda just is that. You just pop away to the ethereal plane for a while. That's about all you need it to do, so extending that duration is about the only useful way to use Meta-Magic with it. Unfortunate, but true. Let's pop forward to Firestorm, another sorcerer spell. But hey, we're here. Firestorm is the only damage spell for clerics at 7th level, interestingly enough. Although Divine Word can kill enemies, it doesn't actually deal damage. Firestorm works well with Empowered Meta-Magic because it deals d10s of damage. So if you roll those 1s and 2s, even 3s, maybe 4s if you're feeling lucky, 5s if you really want to play that average, Empowered spell Meta-Magic is going to be your friend in bumping those up. Most likely. Statistically likely. Firestorm can also benefit from Distant Spell, as it has an already pretty impressive range of 150 feet, which can be doubled to 300. Otherwise, it can of course be quickened if you want to toss out a cantrip or do something else with your action. Or with Tasha's Cauldron of Everything's Transmute spell, you can change the damage type from fire to poison if you want to, or cold, lightning, thunder, or acid, something that is less likely to run into resistances and immunities, especially useful if you're fighting fiends or something that are immune to fire. On, again, to Plane Shift. Plane Shift has a weird interaction with Distant Spell, because while the spell has a range of touch, and can therefore mechanically be increased to a range of 30 feet, the spell's description describes that you link hands with the other creatures that it affects. Basically, you and up to 9 other people can link hands in a circle, and then all teleport away to a different plane. Now, that actually means that you're chaining that touch range through other people, which is unique to this spell, as far as I know. So there's a weird gray area with the Distant Spell Meta-Magic, because it raises questions like, do the other creatures need to be within 30 feet of you, or can they, do they have to be linked among themselves, holding hands? If that's the case, do they have to leave an open spot for you, or do they close the circle themselves? These are all questions that your DM is going to have to answer for you, or your table is going to have to decide as a group, because the player's handbook doesn't give any indication. Mechanically, its range is touch, so by raw you can use Distant Spell. It's just how that plays out is probably going to vary from group to group. Used aggressively, however, Plane Shift with Distant Spell can really start to shine, because Plane Shift can effectively act as a really harsh banishment, where you make a melee spell attack against a creature. It is still a melee spell attack, even if cast with Distant Spell, which is weird, but hey, that's the rules. And then, if you hit, the creature makes a Charisma saving throw. If it fails the Charisma saving throw, it's banished to a plane of your choosing. And because of that, you can essentially instantly kill something with this spell by sending a powerful fiend to Mount Celestia, or sending a purple worm into the heart of the fire plane. Like, you can just absolutely annihilate something. And with Distant Spell, you can do it from 30 feet away. Also good for plane shift used aggressively is the Heightened Spell Meta-Magic, as well as the Seeking Spell Meta-Magic from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. These two Meta-Magics will help the saving throw fail and help you land that attack roll, respectively. So there's definitely some utility there. Spell can also be quickened. It can also be subtle, very useful against spellcasters. And you definitely don't want to get counterspelled when you're casting a high level spell like that. However, the spell can't be twinned, even when used aggressively, because it's capable of targeting more than one creature in its friendly teleporting usage. So, unfortunately, twin is out. But that whole list of meta-magics that all apply will certainly go a long way to helping out this spell, especially when used aggressively, but also, and especially depending how you rule it, that friendly use as well. Next spell, Regenerate. Regenerate is a prime candidate for the twin spell meta-magic. It gives a pretty nice heal right off the bat of 48 plus 15. That's 4d8, not 48. And also on top of that, at the start of every turn, the creature gains 1 HP. This not only serves as a nice long-term heal, restoring HP between battles, but also, if a creature gets knocked down to 0 HP, that doesn't end the spell. They still get that 1 HP at the start of their turn. So, they go down, they get picked right back up at the start of their turn. And since it's the start of their turn, they can still just get back on their feet and act for the rest of the turn. Even if they get knocked back down, they'll just get back up next turn. And with Twin Spell, you can do this on 2 of your party members. The spell doesn't require concentration or anything, so it's going to be up for the full duration. If you don't want to give it to 2 party members for whatever reason, you can, of course, extend it, making it last 2 hours, giving you 2 hours of a nearly invincible ally. Not really nearly invincible, they can still be knocked down, but they can't really be killed. I mean, they can. It's very hard. The point is, twin this. At very high levels, when you have a second spell slot, 7th level spell slot, or if you're willing to spend like an 8th level spell on it, you can continue to cast it on more and more party members and just get your team under the regenerate effect if you want to. Very resource intensive, could be worth it in a very important fight or series of fights if you have a bit of time to heal up between. I love the idea of a high-level Divine Soul Sorcerer, especially with those multiple 7th slots, a lot of sorcery points, maybe a simulacrum to help out, just giving the entire party regeneration, and going to town on whatever evil may be afoot with little regard for personal safety, because they don't need it. I want to see a DM's face someday when I'll do that. It'll happen. I should move on from Regenerate, though. I've rambled long enough, so let's talk about another very strong support spell, Resurrection. Now, Resurrection's basically just a beefed-up Raised Dead, like we talked about a couple of videos ago. That's fine. This one is just bigger in every way. It's a higher level spell slot, it's a more expensive pile of diamonds, which, with Twin Spell, you can make go twice as far. It essentially becomes 500 gold pieces per resurrection instead of 1,000, which is kind of like a normal Raised Dead, but Resurrection you can bring back somebody at full health who's been dead for like up to 100 years, so there's that. You're probably going to resurrect your friends faster than that, but hey, I don't know what's going on in your campaign. Resurrection, when you need it, you need it. So, might as well make it go twice as far. It's about the only one it's eligible for anyway because of its long casting time and instantaneous duration. Of course, you can cast it as a subtle spell, but why? Or distant spell, but why? Unless there's like, you're in a jail cell and the corpse is in the opposite jail cell from you. Again, I don't know your campaign, but I'm rambling, so I'm going to press on to Symbol. Symbol is a lot like a beefed up Glyph of Warding, and unfortunately in that episode, the 3rd level spells episode, I completely overlooked some things with Glyph of Warding, so the advice I'm about to say for Symbol, just apply it to both. Symbol and Glyph of Warding have effects that trigger when another creature sets off the glyph. This could be a damaging effect, it can be something else, usually terrible, but either way it happens at a different time from when the spell is cast, which means there is some weirdness with things like the empowered spell Meta-Magic, allowing you to re-roll the damage when it's rolled. So when the glyph goes off, basically, if you have a glyph that deals a bunch of damage in a big ol' radius, and you're on a different plane of existence years later after casting it, and something sets it off, you just, I guess, spend your sorcery point then? It's weird, but that's what it is, by per the rules there. Same thing with Heighten Spell and Transmute Spell for certain versions of the Glyph of Warding. It's all a little janky, but it is what it is. Your DM could also have you pay these sorcery points in advance, maybe roll the damage in advance, although Symbol, the damage field lasts for 10 minutes, continually damaging the things inside it, so I don't know how well a single damage roll would work out. I guess you could roll damage once and have it apply to every single instance of that damage. Some DMs like to rule that way anyway. Not the way I usually do it, but it is a thing. And if your DM does rule that way, Empowered Spell is exceedingly efficient. Super, super good use of that one sorcery point. So that's weird, but it's a thing. Also with Symbol, and I mentioned it with Glyph of Warding as well, you can use the distance spell Meta-Magic to place the glyph up to 30 feet away instead of on something that you touch, although you get 7th level spells at level 13. And as a Divine Soul you get wings at level 14, so nothing's really out of your reach most of the time. I don't know. Maybe it's useful. We'll see. That's about it for Symbol. And we only have one left, and it's Temple of the Gods. And I hate to end on kind of a disappointing note, but Temple of the Gods doesn't really have Meta-Magic use. It's you summon up a big old building. That's what it do. It does have a range of 120 feet, so you can cast it as a distance spell. Although usually I think the point is to go inside the building afterwards, so casting it farther away might not be that good an idea. But hey, I don't know your campaign. It's the theme for this episode. Otherwise you can cast it as a subtle spell. Again, I don't see a reason why you would. But it's there. It's about the only option, that and distant. So, there you go. Sorry about that. That's the last one. We're done now. Probably actually is a shorter video. I don't know, we'll see in editing. I don't know why I keep saying things like that. We'll see in editing. Thanks for watching the whole thing, however long it ended up. And yeah, I really appreciate your support. Leave a like, subscribe, all the YouTuber stuff if you want. I'm not in charge of your life. You do you. That's all I got to say. Thanks for watching. Again, peace.